The woman was stunned to discover that her husband, who had been dead for 3 years, was actually still alive. And not only alive, he'd been living right next door all this time, sharing a bed and life with another woman for 3 years. The reason she hadn't noticed wasn't because she didn't recognize him, it was because he hid it too well. 3 years ago, her husband and his twin brother joined the military. Only one came back. The man claimed he was the twin, and that her husband had died on the battlefield. But after years of being together, she could never mistake her own husband. Yet the man shoved her aside, burned all documents related to her husband, and shouted that her husband was truly dead. She was devastated, attempted suicide multiple times, but was always saved by the brother who encouraged her to live on. Until one day, she overheard a conversation between him and his mother, and finally learned the truth. It was the brother who had died. Her husband took his place to spare the widow pain. He planned to give her a child as comfort for the rest of her life. The woman was crushed. She had spent 3 years drowning in grief, while he watched her suffer in silence, never speaking a word of truth. Just then, a matchmaker arrived with news. A military commander who had secretly loved her for years was about to be transferred to an island post, and sent a proposal for the 7th time. Back in school, that commander had always loved her, but she married someone else first. Now, hearing the truth, she accepted the proposal without hesitation. Half a month later, she would leave for the island to marry him. The man next door heard the news, and burst out in a rage, shouting at the matchmaker to leave. But the woman only found him ridiculous. He had shared a bed with her sister-in-law for 3 years, yet wouldn't let her remarry. Back home, as she packed, she heard the bed creaking next door. Though she now knew the truth, it still broke her heart. Suddenly there was a scream. She rushed outside, and saw the man carrying the sister-in-law, covered in blood. At the hospital, she learned the sister-in-law was pregnant, and had suffered heavy bleeding due to overly intense intimacy. She needed a blood transfusion. The only match was the woman. The same woman who had just recently slit her own wrist for that man, yet he demanded she give a full pint of blood. After the sister-in-law was discharged, he began showering her with affection, which only disgusted her. Then the sister-in-law panicked. She'd been reported for illegally selling permits to return to the city. The man was terrified. He knew how serious this was for a military official. Just as he was looking to pull strings, the enforcement team showed up, and in front of everyone, he accused the woman of being the criminal. She was dragged away, interrogated for 3 days and nights, but she never confessed. Eventually she was sent to work in a coal mine. The next day, there was a collapse. She was buried in rubble. She vaguely heard his voice. When she opened her eyes again, she was in the hospital. 7 days passed before she could get up. The women in the neighborhood pitied her, and began introducing her to new suitors. One even brought the man over directly. Before he could introduce himself, the man stormed in and punched him, driving everyone out. The woman felt sick. She never wanted to see him again. That night, he stumbled drunk into her room. Intentions unclear. She shouted and shoved him out. The sister-in-law heard the noise, and the woman explained he must have entered the wrong room. The sister-in-law didn't suspect anything, but left looking jealous. After they left, the woman sobbed under her blanket. Tomorrow she would leave, and she didn't expect this to be their farewell. The next morning, just as she finished packing, the sister-in-law burst in, accusing her of seducing her husband. Before she could explain, the sister-in-law